All right, it looks like we have participants in the audience joining in. We'll give it a couple minutes and then we'll get rolling. All right, well, it's 3 o'clock. We would love to get started. So welcome, everyone. It's great to be here with you and talk about the future of career and technical education, a segment of the industry that's of tremendous importance to a large portion of the population and to the country from an economic standpoint. CTE, for short, doesn't always get its due. That's why we're here, to make it a priority as we think about industry-wide innovation. The path forward has to include CTE. I'm Chris Janzen, the Vice President of Academic Technology for ECMC Group, one of the sponsors of this year's conference. With me, I have Katy Kappler, co-founder and CEO of Inscribe, a technology platform for building and sustaining online communities. I also have Stephen Fromkin here, co-founder and chief content officer of Tailspin, a virtual reality platform provider, to round out our panel. In the spirit of getting to the discussion, let's dive into some brief context setting, then head straight to the discussion. If you have questions, use the Q&A chat feature, which is on the lower right side of your screen, the question mark icon. We'll try to get to some questions at the end of the discussion. If you'd like to share some thoughts and reactions with the group, use the chat room icon in the chat window. We also have our Twitter handles on the slide here. So if you're inspired to share points of interest, please do. A little background and context on ECMC. ECMC Group is a nonprofit corporation with a simple mission to support learner success and to drive positive outcomes through innovation, investment, and delivering educational solutions. For example, our foundation has contributed over $147 million in educational grant making and program-related investments over the past several years, including one of our panelists, Inscribe. ECMC Group runs a $100 million Education Impact Fund and has investments in companies represented here at ASU GSV. Lastly, our education affiliate has a history of running CTE schools, graduating over 37,000 students since 2015. We've also started a new venture focused on employee skill development and training to address the broad market need for talent. At our CTE schools in Tampa, Atlanta, and Houston, we've lived through the recent COVID campus closures. Thankfully, we took a technology forward investment strategy over the past 3 years that put us in a position to continue in a 100 remote capacity. And we couldn't have done this without accelerating into virtual community building efforts, creating an environment where students still felt connected and supported. And that's why we believe it's today's topic. At our CTE schools, student outcomes during the peak of COVID crisis fared well despite the many challenges that we faced. This data right here on the slide is from March through June when the campuses were closed. Student satisfaction remained very high at 93%, and new enrollments surpassed last year's pre-pandemic timeframe. These are remarkable stats for a traditionally heavy in-person, hands-on modality. The key takeaway is that CTE students have a much higher tolerance for an extreme remote or distance learning format than we ever thought, and this gives us permission to push further. To illustrate the point and segue into Tailspin's VR overview, we were concluding a VR pilot as COVID was hitting. I'm going to show you a 2-minute video of that effort and then turn it over to Stephen.
Virtual reality changes the way the faculty needs to teach, because now we're able to do so much more with the time that we have here at the campus. The virtual reality takes a lot of the mundane task out of the teaching, so when the student comes in, they're well prepared for their class. It just makes for a better overall experience for the student.
The students are really excited to be trying out the VR. Most of them, it's their first experience with virtual reality, and they are really impressed with how real these simulations are.
When I first got my goggles, I thought that this was crazy, but when I turned it on, like actually started working with it, it was great. It was like seeing everything firsthand and being able to actually be there and touch it.
The more I tried it, the more comfortable I became with it, and then excited to say, wow, this is really a great learning aid coupled with the classroom experience.
The greatest benefit I've seen with using the virtual reality is I'm able to, at home, see the equipment I'm about to work on, learn where all the parts to the equipment are, and then turn around and go to school and know exactly where each little piece on that machine is.
The students were able to individualize their learning curve by practicing at home at their own time. They were able to repeat exercises as many times as they needed to until they felt comfortable.
I would definitely encourage VR training in every program. I believe it has a unique ability to bring to life some new experiences.
The way they teach here at this school is different than what I've done in the past. I like the way the teachers come from the field and into the classroom and teach like a manager on duty.
On behalf of ECMC Education, Alturas, our faculty, and our students, I want to thank ECMC Foundation for the grant that made this pilot of VR possible.
All right, Stephen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Again, my name is Stephen. I'm one of the founders of Tailspin. We can go ahead to the next slide if you wouldn't mind, unless I have control. I don't think I do. Okay, great. So, at the broadest level, Tailspin is providing a platform with both content and tools to enable a continuous cycle of learning for skills, both hard and soft. This is extremely pertinent to the changing workforce and even pre-COVID, what we're seeing throughout all of hard skills training. Go ahead and if you wouldn't mind, go to the next slide. The reason we use VR is because it does something different than other training modalities. It's not instead of them all. It's not to replace them all. It doesn't replace trainers or instructors. It doesn't replace any one thing. But what it does is accelerate the learning of individuals who are able to access the technology. And the reason is very simple. If you think about a flight simulator, we've heard of flight simulators. We all know that they exist. We've seen them on television or what have you, and we don't question why they're used. We don't scratch our head and wonder why spend all the money on a big glorious machine to put pilots in. We get it. That right away we know that the stakes are too high. We do not want the pilot to fail, and therefore we give them a safe place to train. And in doing so, we actually access a better way for them to learn. We access the experiential, all the tenets, all the pillars of experiential training. We don't question why folks learn better on the job. We hear on the job training as a phrase all the time. This is as close as we can get. And in fact, it provides many other benefits as well. Go ahead to the next slide real quick. Ultimately, there's lots of great data. There's some stats here that some of which come from a peer-reviewed study that PwC did, and that used our technology, our learning modules. But I think at the end of the day, what we get asked most is, well, does it actually return on the investment? Does the effort of this new hardware, of the software, of the platform, does it really pay off? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And undoubtedly, yes. You have to build it right. You have to think about it in the right way. You have to deploy it. It takes some time to get used to, but it's absolutely worth it because of the way in which the learners walk away with measured results and with an engagement that we're not seeing in traditional learning modalities. Go ahead, if you wouldn't mind, Chris, to the next slide. Thank you. So real quick, let's divide this slide up into 2/3 on the left and 2/5 on the left and 3/5 on the right. Where you see platform technology, I'm looking to demonstrate two different things here. And neither of those are our affinity for aviation, which is clear by our consistent branding. But the platform technology is really built for measurement, is really built to make sure that rather than pass-fail or completion statements or some of the older, less engaging technologies where a box is just checked, we're providing a back end that is able to measure and report and continuously follow a user and map the skills. We'll get into that probably a little bit more in the panel. But that back end is a major differentiator. On the right, the three to the right are really the content enabling technologies that we have built that allow not just Tailspin to build soft skill and hard skill and field tool type engagements, but will begin to allow others out in the world, whether they be in educational institutions or enterprise organizations, actually provide the authoring tools to eventually be able to build themselves. Those are broad strokes. I think, do I have one more slide? I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Stephen. Really appreciate you walking us through Tailspin. What an exciting organization. Katie, let's jump over to you. You want to give us some background on Inscribe? Oh, Katie, we need you to come off mute.
There we go. Did that work?
Yep, you sound great.
All right, there we go. Muted in two places. Okay, so hi everyone. And just as Chris said, I'm co-founder and CEO at Inscribe. And we are a virtual community platform. So we're designed to wrap around the resources and curriculum at an institution and help connect students to the people and the information that's really critical for them to be successful at their learning. And one of the reasons that digital communities are so powerful is that they're just a very scalable, very flexible way to connect students with the entire ecosystem of people that they need to be working with and participating with to generate a successful learning experience. Because if you think about it, and I'm sure many of the people on this call can relate to this, what you gain from an educational experience is as much about the connections that you're making, the people that you're meeting, as it is about the skills that you're building. And so we want to help students create and maintain that network of individuals so they can always access individualized support and encouragement throughout their learning journey, but also ideally once they've gone off and now they're practitioners in the field. Our system is really designed to work across that entire learning journey. So students have one place to go anytime they need help, kind of regardless of what the topic is or where they are in the process. And we sort of constantly remind people, never underestimate how important it is to simplify access to information, because students are going to run into kind of micro challenges throughout their learning process. And something that starts out really small, like maybe you have a balance due on your account, or maybe there was just one topic in your class that you didn't understand. If that student doesn't understand where to go to fix that problem, what was a small issue can become insurmountable, and it can quickly become a stop-out moment for that student. So we are really focused on streamlining that process and making sure that they can consistently overcome any challenges that they face. We have traditionally worked with student populations that we think about as non-traditional or coming from underserved communities. So in practice, first-generation students, students who are learning online, students who are parents, students who are working, but what they have in common is they are a set of students for whom time constraints are very real. They don't have a tremendous amount of flexibility in their day, and they may not have as much experience in terms of how to successfully navigate what can sometimes be a really complicated, ecosystem in education. And so you can imagine the benefits for these students are really profound. One, we super simplify how you're getting access to individuals and help. Two, we make sure that that help is on demand. So it is available to you always and not just between, regular business hours. And then three, we are connecting you with a community of peers and alumni and others who have similar backgrounds, similar experiences, similar aspirations. So you are constantly getting help and support from people who look like you, who feel like you, and creating that sense of confidence and belonging that we all know is really critical for every student's success. Now, I will say that communities of learning are particularly impactful in the CTE space, and we see a lot of opportunity there. And that's partly because communities, as we just mentioned, they really thrive when students come to them or participants come to them with a shared set of experiences. And that's kind of baked in to CTE because you have students who are essentially, focusing on developing similar skills. They're probably working towards similar career paths. They're going to encounter a lot of the same challenges. So the information that they're sharing with each other is going to feel super relevant all the time. You can get these communities up and running really quickly and have a positive impact for students really quickly. The other thing that's great when students are aligned like that is their ability to give back to the community is really amplified. So one of the things we're looking at here is like a profile of a student inside of our platform. And we can see that, this woman, Anna, has started to demonstrate some mastery in certain topic areas. She's actually able to go back and help fellow students who are getting stuck. She's also demonstrating some of those softer skills, like the ability to look for answers herself, to communicate effectively and clearly, to collaborate with others. So, when you bring CTE students together, when you have that unity of purpose, the potential impact of learning communities is just even greater than it is sometimes in the broader education landscape. So that's just a quick introduction to Inscribe. I'll turn it back over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Stephen and Katie. CTE, really, there's just tremendous opportunity to leverage technology in ways that the CTE community just hasn't experienced. So let's kick off our panel discussion here with the first question. So let's start with you, Katie, and then we'll move on to you, Stephen. How does your platform extend the educational environment beyond the traditional classroom for hands-on learning?
Great question. And so I would say that type of activity is what a community is all about. Extending learning and access beyond just traditionally what you're doing, in your curriculum. I'll sort of emphasize three places where I think that that's really critical for students and for the institution that's supporting them. So one, learning communities, digital communities, they create a space for students to talk to each other and engage with each other when they're going to put their learning into practice. So, you've practiced this in the classroom, you learned it into classroom, but when you actually go to do it in the real world, you can sometimes run into maybe you forgot something or there's a scenario there that you didn't cover in the classroom. And so the community creates a space for that student to come back and say, hey, I ran into this, I ran into this difficulty or this scenario, and everyone can kind of jump in and problem solve together and provide feedback. The other great thing about that is that student's hands-on experience is now being shared back with a set of students who maybe haven't encountered that before. So you're essentially expanding the knowledge of all those other students that they're participating with through the hands-on learning of this one individual. The other thing that I think is really great for students in digital communities is the fact that it will allow you to hear the voice of many students who might otherwise not speak up. So this is not unique to CTE, but I think it's certainly prevalent. And it's, you're going to have students for whom the idea of raising my hand in a classroom is totally overwhelming. And they may never get the nerve to actually do that. And so as a result, they're not sharing and they're not potentially raising their voice when they need help. In a digital space, you give students the room to kind of formulate their questions, formulate their answers, take a little bit more time, and you will find that some of those shyer students or students that weren't willing to speak up will become active participants when you give them the opportunity. Now, on the institutional side, when you have students who are telling you in real time about challenges that they're facing, new scenarios that they're running into, when you're hearing that from a broader group of students than you otherwise might have, that information is so powerful for the institution itself because they are telling you at that moment, hey, here's a gap in the curriculum, or here's a new scenario that you need to consider. And it gives the institution the opportunity, number one, to intervene in real time. So they can go and help those students rather than, maybe waiting for the exam at the end of the term or the survey. So they can intervene more quickly. And now they can also use that as a feedback loop to continuously improve the curriculum that they're serving. So the next generation of students maybe never runs into that challenge in the first place.
Those are great points to illustrate, and thanks for walking us through that. Stephen, let's turn it over to you. Same question. How does your platform extend the educational environment beyond the traditional classroom for hands-on learning?
Sure. So it's interesting, the turn of phrase, the educational environment actually takes on a bit of a larger meaning here because virtual reality and augmented reality allows for the environment to mean many different things. It could mean a multiplayer collaborative environment that everyone is dialing in from a remote location. It could mean a shared environment, a shared learning location like a lab, but it also can be very asynchronous where individuals are going in on their own and going through a module, going through a specific experience. But besides the idea of asynchronous or synchronous learning, and besides the obvious ability to sort of transcend the physical space, there's sort of a personalization to this that is very important. From thinking about that last video that we saw, think about the ability to personalize for an individual learner, regardless of where they've come from in their career or education, to be able to have almost their own mini learning lab, their own space where they can go and have the opportunity to rehearse and practice, back to that flight simulator analogy that I used, that freedom to fail, where there's no pressures, very much like Katie was saying, whether it's raising your hand or rehearsing and trying over and over again, getting it to a place where there's a certain level of confidence and doing it in a manner that fits within a flexible schedule. Maybe it's after a current job, they're training, they're retraining, or upskilling in a way that has to fit into a schedule that includes full-time employment. This is a tool that allows for that. Our platform allows not only the personalization to include the actual content that is being trained and the measurement thereof, but it also allows users to make a flexible schedule when and where and how they access the curriculum. The other thing that's important to point out is the experience itself. Is that our platform doesn't, and I think we'll probably get into this a lot deeper, so I don't want to go too far into it, but we're very, very focused on, as Katie was saying, very focused on measurement, right? That's super important. We have a evolving workforce, not just because of COVID, but we have a lot of changing roles and changing dynamics in the workforce these days, and to be able to provide a platform like Tailspin's that lifts the level of engagement because of the way it accesses the user's attention. We're really seeing a level of buy-in from both the facilitators or educators and the learners and enterprises as well, from organizations who are leveraging the platform. So I think what we're finding is that while the technology is viewed as something that may be out there and we can't harness as an organization, we're proving that it is reachable. It is usable at scale, and it's showing some great metrics.
Thanks, Stephen. That's all really powerful, and thank you too, Katie. At ECMC Education, to further extend our learning environment, we'll actually be working with Tailspin as our preferred partner to build out new VR curriculum that will leverage for both our schools, our students, and employer training models. So for employers' employee base. The same goes for online community building. As I said before, we absolutely could not have had the success we're having during this pandemic without these efforts. To that end, we're looking forward to continuing our relationship with Inscribe. All right, next question. How can students and educators use technology to prove to employers that they have the skills needed for technical careers? Stephen, let's start with you.
I'm unmuted. Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, how do we prove it? Well, it's proven with data. I would say that's the easy answer. Perhaps a deeper one is understanding that what a lot of technology and education overall is endeavoring to do is understand what a learner has as a baseline of skills, and truly then be able to measure what they have learned going through a specific course, or what we call learning modules or tracks, and then be able to take all of that data and map it into the career path that is intended, and find that perhaps there's a certain proclivity toward electric, or something that may be a little less focused on electricity. There are likewise certain measurements for soft skills, and that of course is super important, regardless of the role a learner is going to have once they move through education. Whether it's customer experience or experience with a supervisor or colleague, we're seeing a lot of great metrics in soft skills as well. Now, the learning modules on our platform, they track development of very specific skills, and they report this data back, as I said, in a sort of broader career path kind of way, because what we're doing is we're mapping it against learning journeys. But those learning journeys can, as we talked about, being personalized, those learning journeys can be very personalized, or they can be very guided toward a specific role that an individual is intending once they clear the certain hurdles and milestones of training. Ultimately, ultimately, we want people to have an experience in learning that doesn't just fill a need, but is one that is fulfilling. And that way, the learning isn't just something that is a box they must check and a certification they must have, but something that engages them and brings them to a level of creative and critical thinking, so that when they are on the job and they need to make a choice, they make those choices based on a higher level of understanding because of the tools that were made available to them during training.
Thank you, Stephen. Katie, over to you, same question. How can we use technology as educators to prove to employers that learners have the skills to be successful in technical careers?
Yeah, I think, well, and I'll reiterate a little bit of what Stephen was getting at, which is, I think the evolution and acknowledgement that when we talk about what are the skills that are actually needed to be successful, that set of skills has gotten much broader in recent years. And so certainly the hard skills that you need to do the work, but increasingly the soft skills that employers recognize you need to be a great employee and to be a great teammate and to ultimately have long-term success in a career. So we're really looking for ways to demonstrate both of those aspects, right? And I think traditionally we have relied almost exclusively on the curriculum and the assessments and assignments that take place in the curriculum to provide that demonstration. And that's sort of an area that we refer to as prescribed engagement for the student. Like they have to do that stuff to get the grade. And that's very important. It's a huge component of how you're measuring a student's progress. But at Inscribe, we're also really interested in how a student's activities outside of that prescribed assignment and that's prescribed activity can also be harnessed to help demonstrate mastery of both the hard and soft skills. So we do this at Inscribe through the creation of that profile. I think we saw an example of it in the introduction, where we are capturing and reflecting back all of the activities that the student has initiated and accomplished in our system. So, does the student know how to ask a good question and seek out answers when they need help? Does a student have the ability to collaborate with others to solve problems? Is the student demonstrating mastery of a particular topic area because they have been able to provide an answer to another student that was clearly communicated, effective, and accurate? So these are all aspects of data that we can capture within Inscribe and combine to get back to the student to provide just another lens on what they're doing and what they're accomplishing. And in a way, because their students' activity in a learning community is not something that they're being told to do, it's something they're volunteering to do. You can almost argue that it is a more accurate reflection of how that student really will behave, how that learner will ultimately behave when they're on the job, because it's sort of stimulating their behavior as a coworker, helping other people and supporting that environment. So really our aspiration is that the student's profile in Inscribe would be combined with all of their assignments and grades and other measures that they're getting in their prescribed curriculum. And these two things would come together to ultimately be the full profile that the student carries forward to share with their employer.
Thanks again, Katie and Stephen. Yeah, at ECMC, we're combining online learning with employer-led training in the field to really connect those dots and to help with those proof points. And this model has been especially appealing to businesses looking to fill their talent gaps because they want that job-ready person. They can provide training to their employees in a highly scalable, cost-effective way using this blended approach of online learning and employer in the field led hands-on experiences. And again, it's really maintaining that human element in tandem with digital learning tools that's so important. And having that hands-on experience brings it all home for not only the learner, but for the employer to get those proof points. So, okay, all right, one more question here. crystal ball time. Where do you see technology being used in CTE in the next 3 to 5 years? Katie, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I'll speak generally about CTE and kind of where I think things are going, some of which isn't even related to what I do. So one of the things that I'm really excited about is that, and we've already started this process, but I feel it's accelerating, and I think in 5 years we're going to forget we even had this conversation, which is sort of dismantling not dismantling the 4-year degree, but the hold that the 4-year degree had as like the holy grail of post-secondary education, and the idea that that was what everybody was meant to achieve. Absolutely, I'm not anti 4-year degree. I absolutely believe that that's the right thing for some students, but not every student. And so recognizing that we need a multiple modality, including a really robust CTE strategy to meet the needs of younger students just entering the workforce, and individuals who are looking to upskill and continue in their career. So I feel like we're going to get there on that conversation. We won't have to have it anymore. I think the other piece that I'm really excited about that relates probably more closely to our work at Inscribe is the idea that we can start to build communities of learning and support that are agnostic of the individual program or institution that a learner has belonged to. So right now, a lot of our work is within an individual institution, and we can build great communities there. But to have the ability to connect learners and practitioners and employers across the entire globe who are really working on things together is really where we want to go. And we've seen examples of that. So we've already done this in kind of the software engineering, computer science space. They're really, really good at this already. And I think we have opportunities for lots of other areas in CTE to make that happen.
Thanks, Katie. Over to you, Stephen. Same question. Where do you see CTE in 3 to 5 years?
Sure. I think the demand for capable and skilled technical employees, combined with workforce trends toward skills training and non-degree programs, as Katie said, and I too am a proponent of 4-year education, but some of the trends are leading away from it, and that means we need to figure out a way to effectively upskill and reskill technical jobs at scale. So a lot of the future technologies, a lot of the infrastructure that's coming with 5G and other connectivity technology, a lot of the advancements in virtual reality and augmented reality hardware are what we're tracking in order to be able to leverage all of those features and capabilities and provide a platform that is continuously robust in a way that maps a career path and an individualized learner profile, or maps the career path according to an individualized learner profile. That is extremely important when we think of technical jobs, when we think of the skills that make up buckets of capabilities, depending on what role the individual is filling. We believe that VR and AR can easily adapt simulations that, as a certain practice or piece of technology in the field changes, as a certain standard evolves, so too can the training using VR and AR in a simple way that allows current workforce and the incoming workforce to stay up at a high level of critical thinking. And in doing so, across that training includes I would say the ability to provide dynamically tuned difficulty within the training, so that the data that is coming back to the learner and to the educator is really very thoughtful and very concise for where that individual's learning path intends to go. I think that that very likely leads the way for delivering training to individuals, what the individuals actually want, training exactly what they want, and doing so in a competitive landscape that includes enhanced automation and AI and robotics, without being smarter and more prescriptive and thoughtful about how we train and measure. I worry, or we worry at Tailspin, we sort of worry that we won't even be able to solve the workforce issues that we have now, let alone what's coming. So I think it really comes down to a combination of what Katy and I are both saying to enable a skills-based workforce that is mobile with their skills, that is continuously upskilling and reskilling and deploying back into their role.
That's great. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, at ECMC Education, we believe CTE will be very different in 3 to 5 years, and we plan on leading the charge. Small lab formats, on-site employer facilities will overtake the traditional large campus model. And technologies like those that Stephen's referencing of Tailspin and Katy's reference of Inscribe will help us extend our reach in a high-quality way. It's going to take a lot of industry partnership, but we're confident this is the way forward. And as you've seen, the data bears fruit. So we got about 5 minutes left. We're going to do a quick last round here with a question. So, and then want to leave a minute or two to wrap things up. So as you build out your product development roadmaps, how do you intend to have learners and their needs guide you? Real quick answer. Katy, let's start with you.
I mean, we already do that today. So we spend a lot of time talking to our customers. And for us, our customers are, the people who are bringing us into the institution, oftentimes the experts that are helping to moderate the communities and the students. And, we are super responsive to their feedback and make sure that we keep that dialogue open.
Great. Stephen?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're doing that today. I mean, that's truly informing how and what, how we build and what we build.
Yeah.
It's a feedback loop, right? It's, measure and adjust and continue to measure and continue to adjust. I mean, it's agile in nature.
Keep your eyes on the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. So if you're not achieving them, why not? And make the adjustment, as Stephen said, to get there.
And what do you think is unique about the CTE audience? As you think about that feedback loop and making sure you understand their needs.
I think that it's just maybe a different style of learner with different, a different background and coming to the table with maybe different opportunities and constraints than a traditional learner would be. And so being sensitive to that, and also, understanding that you want to ask your questions broadly enough to incorporate that kind of understanding. So you're not just saying, do you want feature X, Y, or Z, but you're understanding their motivations, their constraints, and really appreciating the opportunities to serve them.
Yeah, thanks, Katy. All right, well, I think we need to start wrapping things up. So I'm going to flip back over to our slide here with some contact information. And really want to thank Katy and Stephen and for everybody that attended. On behalf of ECMC Group, Inscribe, and Tailspin, thanks so much for your involvement. And please feel free to reach out to all of us. You can see our contact information here on this slide. We have the ability to contact you, so please reach out to us. Have a great rest of the conference, and we really look forward to seeing you in April. And again, we look forward to being able to, sound the importance of CTE learning, not only for the individuals that are looking for a leg up in their career, but also for the employers that really need that talent in order to hit their goals and objectives. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Bye, Katy.
Thanks, Katy. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, guys. Nice to see you.